the smart sales system is a consultative selling approach. And before we talk about what consultative selling is, we're actually going to start by talking about what is not consultative selling. And that's an approach that I refer to as product selling. This is actually what most salespeople use, is more of a product selling approach. It usually involves a salesperson reaching out to a prospect and talking mostly about, this is the company I work for, this is what we sell, or this is what we do, this is how it works, these are the different packages we have available. And the goal of every outreach and every interaction or communication with the prospect is focused primarily on the goal of closing the sale. And what I mean by that is that every time a product selling salesperson is interacting with a prospect, they're trying to validate, do you need what I sell? Are you interested in what I sell? Even if they can't take the order right there in that conversation or in that email. Now, you may look at that and say, well, what is wrong with that? I'm a salesperson. I've been hired by a company to sell a product. So it only makes sense for me to go out and talk about my product as much as I can to as many people as I can. And while that seems logical, it is not the most optimum approach for these reasons. The product selling approach is all about me. This is my product. This is the company I work for, and all about the salesperson's interests. And those interests are different from the prospect's interests. The prospects you're selling to are getting sold to a lot by other salespeople. And when you use a product selling approach, you're flagging yourself as a salesperson who is trying to sell something. And when you do that, you're more likely to trigger the prospect's guardedness, and that can lead to more objections, more rejection, more resistance. And we discussed how it's very likely the case that the prospects that you're reaching out to, especially if you're doing cold outreach in the form of cold calling, cold emailing, the prospects are likely not in buying mode at that exact moment for the product you sell. And with that, when you use a product selling approach of, this is what I sell, do you need what I sell, are you interested in what I sell, you're more likely to have a mismatch. Because even though the prospect might need what you sell, they might not know it or be thinking about it at that exact moment, and that creates missed opportunities. Missed opportunities where conversations are ended, sometimes prematurely, by objections, conversations that could have led to relationships and leads. And when you do generate leads using a product selling approach where you're talking more about the product than about the prospect, some of those leads might be lower quality leads because you have less information. And when you're working lower quality leads, closing can be harder. Trying to get prospects to agree to move forward that might not have a true need or fit well with what you sell are harder to close. And all of this leads to fewer leads being generated overall and fewer deals being closed. And we can agree that some of those factors make selling more difficult. Here is another direction we can go in. Instead of talking about the company we work for and the product we sell, we can lead more and focus more on the benefits that that product or service can deliver to the prospect that we're trying to communicate with. We can talk more and focus more on the pain points the prospect may have that we can make go away with the product or service that we sell. And to identify if the prospect has the pain points or the problems that we can help to solve, we're going to ask a lot of questions to learn more about the prospect. And once we identify that the prospect has the needs or the challenges that we can help to solve, we can then introduce our product and our company as a solution to the prospect's needs. We can share examples of other customers that we've helped with our product or service to educate the prospect more on what we have to offer and how it works and how it can help. And instead of focusing on trying to close the prospect, either on purchasing our product or trying to validate if they need or are interested in our product, we can focus on trying to close the prospect for the next step in our sales process. With this approach, we make our interactions more about the prospect and less about our product. And that can decrease how much we look like a salesperson who is trying to sell something. And that will trigger less guardedness, leading to fewer objections and less resistance and less rejection. And because we're asking questions and learning more about the prospects will end up being a better fit with the product or service that we sell. And by working better quality leads, closing will actually be easier because we won't be trying to talk prospects into wanting and purchasing, and all of that will lead to more leads and closed sales. Not only can this approach improve our overall results, but selling could actually feel easier with a more consultative selling approach by decreasing all of the resistance and rejection and objections, decreasing the amount of stress and anxiety you may feel while working as a salesperson. Now, earlier in this video, I mentioned that it's understandable for salespeople to use a product selling approach because it's easier. And in some ways it is. It is easier to have something to say if what you primarily do is talk about your product and your company, because most salespeople have a lot of product knowledge already in their head. It can also be difficult to know what questions to ask. I think just about all salespeople can agree that it's good to ask the prospect questions, but even if you agree with that, it can be difficult to figure out what questions should I be asking. And it can also be difficult to know what benefits and pain points to be talking about for the different products and services that you sell. So yes, consultative selling is more sophisticated and is a little bit more difficult. But I feel strongly that overall, consultative selling is easier because if you shift from being a product pusher to a consultative salesperson, you're going to be operating in an environment with less conflict, friction, and guardedness because you're going to look less like a salesperson who's trying to sell something. And that is immediately going to decrease the amount of objections, rejection, and resistance that you experience every single day. Your job will feel easier every single day using a more consultative approach, and you will feel this. And at the end of the day, you're going to be selling more, you're going to be working better leads, and closing is going to be easier. So it's just going to feel like selling is easier with this approach. So the net is that if we can get a little bit more organized on the front end in terms of what to say, we can have a much easier and more successful approach and effort overall. And the key there is to organize and brainstorm the key things to say. And the Smart Sales System will actually help you with that. We will take you through a step-by-step sales message brainstorming process that will help you to organize all the optimum things to say and ask for the product or service that you sell. And here's an example of what going through that process will create. This is a sales message for a product that I sell called Sales Scripter. And once you have your sales message organized, you can use that to create sales scripts, helping you to always know what to say and ask when talking with prospects. Here's an example of a script created by our software, Sales Scripter. This is one of our interactive scripts. Here are my benefits for the product I sell. Here are the pain questions, current state questions, pain points, optimum set of product details, customer example, and more. So with getting organized and then using tools like this, you completely eliminate all of the difficulties of implementing a more consultative selling approach. So one last thing I want to talk about here is that we've talked a lot about consultative selling. And if you implement the Smart Sales System, you're not going to have to think about consultative selling and is what I'm doing consultative selling, because the Smart Sales System will just make you a consultative salesperson. So there won't be anything to think about. But what I do recommend you continue to think about is product selling. Because as I mentioned, it's our natural instinct to be more of a product selling salesperson. So it's easy to fall back in that direction. And it can be good to keep an eye on this to think about, is this cold email I'm sending more of a product selling approach? Is the way I'm handling this appointment more of a product selling approach? And when you identify that, that can be a cue for you to shift gears and focus more on the prospect and focus more on talking about benefits and pain points and get back to asking the key questions in your sales message. And so that is pretty much it. In the next module in the Smart Sales System, we will actually take you through our step-by-step sales message brainstorming process to create your sales message. If you have questions or want more information, the best place to go is salesscripter.com. Thanks for being here. Hope this was helpful, and we look forward to seeing you on the next video. Have a great day. Take care. Bye.